Welcome to the Iceberg of Iceberg charts, where we cover some of the most unexplainable and creepy iceberg charts around. This is a special iceberg chart, and I actually made this one by myself, so hopefully you guys enjoy the personal touch. By now, most of you probably know what an iceberg chart is, but for those who don't, here's a brief explanation. It is a chart that labels topics by their rarity or terror level. At the very top, it should be relatively well-known things, but by the time you end up at the bottom of the iceberg, you'll notice that the topics have changed and they have a very dark tone to them. With that being said, welcome to the Iceberg of Icebergs. This is a kind of odd video to try and make, but basically I'm going over all of the iceberg charts on the internet right now, and I'm going to give them a very brief explanation, then cover some of my favorite topics from each iceberg. So hopefully in the end you guys will have some sort of context of what each iceberg actually is. Anyways, I will have timestamps down below, and remember, if you guys want to use this iceberg in any way, you guys are absolutely free to. I just ask that you guys leave me some credit in the description of your video. Welcome to the clouds. Up here you can still see the sun, there's still some light, and the topics aren't too dark. Yet. YouTube Iceberg. This was an iceberg chart that I actually went over. Obviously, definitely not the first creator to make a video on this, but basically these videos go over random videos that have occurred on YouTube, going from relatively simple things like me at the zoo, to things that are just unexplainable. One of those unexplainable topics would be called Local 58. This is honestly one of the creepiest YouTube channels ever. It is basically a fake news station. They have several videos on their channel, and they kind of all hint at the moon for some reason. If you watch their videos, they have some where it's just a random guy navigating throughout the middle of nowhere during the middle of the night. For some reason, he's recording it, and by the end of his travels, he ends up in a car crash, and you can see an alien, and it's just unexplainable. The YouTube channel is some sort of ARG created by Chris Straub, but before people knew this, it was just kind of terrifying. TikTok Iceberg. This is probably one of the most popular iceberg charts out there right now. Basically, it's about TikTok. What do you know? Things that are unexplainable or maybe just interesting. One specific story that we're going to talk about today is called Security 1275. This is basically a security guard that works at a local graveyard or cemetery, whatever you guys want to call it. But this guy has a whole TikTok account where he goes over all the weird things that he sees at the cemetery. If you guys watch his videos, you guys probably already know, but there's a lot of evidence of him hearing voices or seeing random kids during the pitch black of the night. There's this one video specifically where he comes in on his day off of work and he's talking to some sort of being. Not too sure what to call it besides being, but yeah. Something was there and he was talking to it. Obviously, it is TikTok. It's hard to say if this is real or fake, but there's a lot of evidence going to show that this could be real. This is one of the few stories here that is not some ARG. It's not something that is created to fool people on purpose. This is just a person doing his own thing, and what his will is, we're unsure. Me at the zoo. Iceberg. This was an iceberg chart that I made very recently, and it's going over Jod, the person that made the Me at the Zoo video. Obviously, this is the first video on YouTube. That can be argued, but most people understand that it is the first video. This video has reached 100 million views. It is absolutely viral by every means, and it has had its fair share of drama, which is why that this video has its entire iceberg. We're going to go over one topic on this iceberg, and there are very many, and I have a whole video on this, so if you're interested, check it out in the description down below after you're done with this video. But for now, we're going to go over one of my favorite topics on this iceberg, and that is someone hacking it to promote sub for sub. Basically, there is a short period of time where if you went to the Me at the Zoo video, the original one, if you looked in the description down below, it said this. It was basically some person begging for sub for sub. Somehow, they were able to hack one of the YouTube co-founders and promote their YouTube channel with sub for sub. This is just kind of humorous, to be honest, which is why I mentioned this one, because could you imagine the YouTube co-founder seeing this on his actual channel? PBS Iceberg. So for those of you that are around my age, you guys probably already know what this is. But for those of you that don't know, it's a TV channel that owned Arthur, Curious George, and Clifford. It was a TV channel geared towards kids, but it had its own problem. The specific iceberg that we're going to be going over here was created by Daisy Real 99. One of my favorite topics from this iceberg was actually the Barney float that got brutally destroyed on live television. I'm pretty sure this was like the Macy Day Parade or something like that, but basically it was a parade that was being live broadcasted around November, December, and there was a lot of wind. With all this wind and a giant float that just so happened to be Barney, it was a bad mixture. Basically the wind hit this Barney float and it hit a light post and got ripped apart. It started to get out of hand really quickly because it literally had no hands anymore. So people had to start stomping on Barney to keep it down and so that it wouldn't fly away and get caught on a random skyscraper in New York. Welcome to the very top of the iceberg. There's still some light here from the sun, but things are getting colder and darker really fast. Mandela Effect Iceberg. Basically, the general deal with this is that a large number of people remember an event differently than it actually occurred. One example would be someone remembering this political activist that was believed to have died in the 80s, but he was actually released from prison and actually died in 2013. People saw this in two different ways. They thought he died in the 80s, and then a bunch of people thought he died in 2013. Obviously, with the internet, it's a lot easier to see what the actual case was now, but this was a big debate back in that era. So an actual example that we'll be going over on this iceberg is the Mona Lisa. This is a pretty straightforward topic, but it gives you the general gist pretty fast. If you were to try and remember what the Mona Lisa looked like right now, would you say that she is frowning or smiling? Most people would say that she's not smiling, but if you look at the real picture, she is smiling. Just might make you wonder what else you're remembering wrong. Lost media iceberg. I think the topic kind of describes itself, but this is going over digital media that has been lost. The iceberg that we're looking at right now was created by the Reddit user called the Fergie One and Only. Like I was saying, these are topics that were known to actually exist but are no longer available to see. Basically, they're hidden, but they still exist. Just one example was the All-American Massacre featuring Chop Top from Texas Chainsaw. This was a complete film, it had a release date, and was a 60-minute feature. It was never actually released, and no more footage came out since the trailer. It was just assumed that there were copyright issues that kept this movie from actually coming out, since it had actual Texas Chainsaw characters in it. Supposedly there is a bootleg copy somewhere out there roaming around, so who knows, maybe one day you'll get your hands on this forbidden film. Infamous Hoaxes Iceberg. This iceberg is going over basically huge jokes that went viral on the internet. It's basically just a famous lie. One very fast example of this one would be the Big Ben going digital. That or unicorn meat, or maybe even the furry trout. These are all likely things that you probably came across in the early stages of the internet. This is really when the infamous hoaxes kind of trended. People would put random pictures on the internet that you would probably just believe because you probably didn't know Photoshop even existed. This iceberg has a lot of great topics, and it's just one of those icebergs that you guys need to go watch yourself to really get the full grasp. The universe iceberg. This iceberg is very scientific, and if you guys want to learn about the universe and space, it's a great video to watch. This was created by Quable. I'm probably mispronouncing that name horrifically, but that's what we're going to go with. One of the coolest topics that I could actually understand on his iceberg was dark matter. Basically, dark matter is the hypothetical form of matter thought to account for approximately 85% of the matter in the universe. Its presence is implied in a variety of astrophysical observations, including gravitational effects that cannot be explained by accepted theories of gravity unless more matter is present than can be seen. For this reason, most experts think that dark matter is abundant in the universe and that it has had a strong influence on its structure and evolution. Dark matter is called dark matter because it does not appear to interact with the electromagnetic field, which means it does not absorb, reflect, or emit electromagnetic radiation, and is therefore difficult to detect. Sorry for taking you back to science class there for a second, but yeah, that was one of the topics, and hopefully that gives you the vibe of the universe, iceberg, science and stuff. Am I right? Well, you're officially under the surface. Under the water, things will quickly become darker at this level. Cult Iceberg. This iceberg is about religions and cult, and I'm not saying by any means that all religions are a cult, it's just the topics that are on this iceberg. One specific cult that we're going to be looking at today that I found the most interesting on this iceberg was the cargo cult. The cargo cult is an indigenous Malarian belief system in which adherents perform rituals which they believe will cause a more technological, advanced society to deliver goods. These cults were first described in Malaysia in the wake of contact with Allied forces during the Second World War. Isolated and pre-industrial island cultures that were lacking technology found soldiers and supplies arriving in large numbers, often by airdrop. The soldiers would trade with the islanders, and after the war the soldiers departed. The cargo cult arose after that, attempting to imitate the behaviors of the soldiers that they saw, thinking that this would somehow cause the soldiers and cargo to return. Some of these cult behaviors went from mimicking the day-to-day activities that these soldiers did to performing parade ground drills with wooden or salvage rifles. Area 51 Iceberg. This was an iceberg chart that I made myself. It's the only one that is on YouTube that I know of. Basically, it's going over Area 51, what do you know? Area 51 is very mysterious on its own. This is a very special Air Force base, basically, and it started out as a nuclear test site and worked its way up to being a test site for UAVs. One of the topics that we're going to be going over on this iceberg is actually on hybrids. This is a topic fairly down low on this iceberg, which makes it pretty creepy. But when you think of Area 51, your mind probably goes to aliens, which is why I wanted to go over hybrids. If you guys watch Captain Marvel, it is a very similar concept where basically these alien-like creatures are somehow genetically mutated to look like humans. Being that they look like a human, but they somehow are an alien life form, they're able to infiltrate our government. They're able to do things that no other alien could because it's an imposter. Their job is to break into the government, get information out, and destroy. That is just one of the theories that is going on in Area 51. Minecraft Iceberg. I don't think this needs a lot of explaining because most of you guys probably already played this game a ton. But there's a lot of theories going on this fairly simple game. One of the original being Herobrine. He was basically a hoax to an extent, but Mojang, aka Minecraft at the time, kind of went along with it. They made it this whole thing where there was this random character that would kind of come around and sneak by you in the game. And it was fake, but a lot of people thought it was real. It's just one of those things. One of my favorite topics from this iceberg was actually an achievement called Rescuing a Ghast. This is basically an achievement you get in Minecraft when you bring a ghast from the nether to the spawn world, but then you destroy it. When you do destroy the ghast, you get this weird achievement called Rescuing a Ghast. Kind of weird that rescuing is actually ending its life. Wikipedia Iceberg. Wikipedia is a website that we probably all have used. We've all heard our English teacher say that we shouldn't use it, but we all still do. This was an iceberg created by this person. Yeah, I'm not going to try and pronounce that because it's just going to be bad. This is one of the topics that this person went over, and I thought it was pretty interesting. The Day the Clown Cried. It's an unfinished and unreleased 1972 Swedish-French drama film directed by and starring Jerry Lewis. It is based on an original screenplay by Joanne O'Brien and Charles Denton, from a story idea by Joanne O'Brien with the addition material from Lewis. The film was met with controversy regarding its premise and content, which features a circus clown who is imprisoned in a concentration camp. Disturbing Sounds Iceberg. This iceberg contains anything from 911 phone calls to Beast. screaming in the far distance. Whether these are real or not, they're still in the iceberg, and with zero context, they're all pretty creepy. One of the topics that I found the most interesting was this bird, and this is a now extinct bird, but someone was able to record the very last sound of a male mating call by this bird. So like I was saying, that was the very last male bird to ever make its mating call for a mate that obviously never came. It's kind of creepy knowing that that's the last time you'll ever hear that sound again come from a bird. Well, he made it almost to the very bottom of this iceberg. At this level, there's minimal light, and topics are even more disturbing. Easter egg iceberg. An Easter egg is something that you usually have to find. It's something that is hidden, which is why there are Easter eggs in video games. These are things that you can unlock by doing certain steps in a game, and you're basically rewarded with something that no one else would ever see. Most video games all have some sort of Easter egg. It's just a way that developers can have fun and put their own plot on a game. The specific iceberg that we're going to be looking at was created by Spins Rock and his girlfriend actually, which is pretty awesome. We're going to be looking at a game called Condemned's Criminal Origins, and basically somehow whenever you're going through this game you come to this point where if you're not paying attention you probably won't even notice, but this mannequin head just ever so slightly tilts and stares at you straight in the face. Most people would probably just glance straight over this because they're playing a video game, there are other things going on, but if you do notice this mannequin head turn and stare at you, I promise you that will terrify you. Nickelodeon Iceberg. Nickelodeon was a very popular company, just like PBS. A lot of us that watch PBS eventually watched Nickelodeon. It was a slightly older version of PBS, but there were a lot of weird things happening on this platform. Just one example was that one of the directors for Nickelodeon had some sort of feet thing, and if you guys watch iCarly, there are a lot of subtle hints that this was actually a thing behind the scenes, and yeah, you could do your own research on that part, but the real topic that we're going to go over is this. Basically, it was some person that came home to go watch Nickelodeon, turned on his TV, and this is what he saw. So I turned it on to see this creepy black and white and gray scene, where hundreds of humans are walking in a line over these hills in the background, towards these giant hamster wheels in front of the scene. They're walking towards the wheels, as a few people are already in the wheels, walking endlessly and mindlessly in a robotic zombie-like state. The people walking towards the wheel are also in a very similar state, as if there's no life within their eyes. They're just cold/robotic. There's this wind-like noise whistling in the background. It looks real, not animated, and as I watch in awe at this dark scene, I come to a similar conclusion and ask myself why Nickelodeon would have something so live and non-action as the entire scene keeps just repeating itself of more humans walking towards and in these hamster wheels. I start thinking maybe it's just some weird short and it's kind of cool in a dark sort of way, but minutes go by and I start to get dull watching the same scene, not doing anything else. So I quickly change the channel to something else, and in a split second I realize, wait, what did I just watch? And I change it back immediately, only to find SpongeBob on mid-episode. So yeah, that person had a very cursed experience on Nickelodeon, very unsure what actually happened there, or if he was just tripping out, but yeah, welcome to the Nickelodeon Iceberg. Do not research Iceberg. This iceberg is pretty hard to talk about on YouTube just because of how bad it gets. I'm honestly trying to explain this iceberg in some sort of way that will keep this video not like shadow banned, and there's just no way. I'm going to be using Fox's iceberg on this. I assume he created it. He never credited anyone else, so we'll just go with that. One of the people on his iceberg was John's Bones on TikTok. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Apparently, this guy has been collecting human bones from India and China. Somehow, it's not illegal in the US, and if you guys watch his TikToks, his rooms are literally just full of human skulls. There's this one skull specifically that he kind of brags about that apparently belonged to a toddler, so that's pretty dark. 2000s Iceberg. So for people, again, that are about my age, this iceberg is very nostalgic. It's going over things that you probably watched when you're in elementary school, some of the things that you first started making memories with. These are like shows that you guys watched with your friends when you were growing up, or just toys that were around back when you were in the 2000s. One of the examples that we're going to be going over from this iceberg was the Mexican doll. This was one of the very first viral videos that I personally saw on YouTube, and it all started in the mid-2000s, just as YouTube was becoming popular. Basically, if you guys watch this video, this girl has a doll, and the doll moves its head, and it's a very short video, but still terrifying and unexplainable. Chances are that you seeing this will actually remind you of the first time you saw this when you were just a kid. This video is a little bit more creepy when you realize how old it actually is, because editing wasn't as easy to come by back in that year. Disturbing websites, Iceberg. The internet is a very, very interesting place, and it's basically the biggest rabbit hole you could ever go down. There are countless websites because anyone can make a website. Obviously, you guys know of some of the most popular websites, but have you heard of this one? It's basically called the Matrix.ws, spelled with fancy numbers. There are a lot of sites that actually try to mimic movies in some sort of extent, and this is just one of them. There's even this Jurassic Park one that kind of reminds you of the original Jurassic Park scene where the guy's on the computer. But the one that we're going to be looking at today, which I thought would be even more fitting for this video, was going over the Matrix font website. Basically, it lets you type in a few commands. You can actually create an account and message people using this website. I set up 2 accounts and I was able to text each other back and forth, and it's kind of unknown what this website's actually for. It's probably just some random project, but it's a little weird seeing this considering the context of The Matrix. If you guys don't know what The Matrix is, you guys just need to go watch the movie. Basically, people think that they are living real life, but in reality they are being controlled by a computer. So, a little creepy seeing this on a website. I'm sure that this website has a ton of Easter eggs. It's just one of those things that you have to go down the rabbit hole and test. The Google Maps Iceberg. Google Maps is pretty great because you can basically explore the entire world from your smartphone. Google uses anywhere from satellites to cars with cameras to people with cameras to map out the entire world. Being that the entire world is being mapped out and there is countless data here, there are a lot of weird things that occurred. One of the most interesting topics that we ran into on my Google Maps iceberg was the scarecrows in Bolivia. Basically, if you walk through this town in Bolivia, you will see human-like scarecrows tied up at traffic lights. It's still very creepy to see this because it just looks like people are hanging from light poles. In reality, it's just scarecrows trying to prevent people from stealing in the area. Apparently, crime was really bad there. With zero context, and if you're just searching through the street on your own, it is truly terrifying, and it'll make you wonder what is going on in this small town in Bolivia. There is no light anymore. These icebergs are straight up cursed and terrifying. These 3 topics personally left me disturbed after researching for this video, so good luck. Hell Iceberg. Obviously, as soon as you start talking about hell, you start talking about religion. We're not going to go very deep into that because that's not what this channel is for. Basically, one of the topics that we are going over today is called Satan's Waiting. Basically, this is an episode where Sylvester the cat goes to hell. This was an old cartoon, and it was geared towards kids, so these kids are seeing this cat die and wake up in hell. This is literally the worst fear for any kid ever, is going to sleep and waking up in hell. So this was terrifying for most children that saw this episode. The whole play here was that the cat has 9 lives, so he ends up going to hell, seeing this other cartoon character that was very popular at the time, and he gets sent back to Earth because he's a cat. Personally, this would have terrified me as a kid. This is probably one of those type of episodes that probably should have not been aired in the first place, but it was. And here we are, making a video on this cursed cartoon. Mysterious People, Iceberg. This is going from fictional characters to real people that have been rumored to exist. My favorite topic from this iceberg was Max Headroom. Basically, Max Headroom is a British fictional artificial intelligence character, wow, that was a mouthful, known for his wit, stuttering, and electronical altered voice. He was introduced in early 1985. This character was created by George Stone, Annabelle Jankel, and Rocky Morton, but that is not where it ended. In 1987, this character was actually seen hijacking 2 news stations. Basically, people are just watching the news, and it cuts to the Max Headroom character ranting. Makes you wonder if the Max Headroom character was real to begin with, or if someone was just impersonating it to creep you out. Now, whether if this was fake or not, that's up to you, but this all happened over 30 years ago, so it's kinda hard to tell what was going on back then. The internet, iceberg. This is probably the most broad iceberg topic that we have here, just because it's very similar to the YouTube iceberg or the website iceberg. There are literally countless topics. The iceberg that we're looking at here is by Broken Enthusiasm. One of my favorite topics from this iceberg was called camera heads. Very similar to the siren heads that we're seeing now, there were these camera heads, which were probably a very big influence on the new siren head theme thing that we have going on now. Basically, people would act like these characters work for the government to somehow spy on us citizens. It originated from a creepypasta, supposedly, but some would say otherwise. No one really knows where this came from, but this is how the creepypasta goes. Basically, some guy goes in the forest and finds a bag with a camera and tape. And in this, they also found a note that says they ended a camera head life. Obviously, there is some code words going on there so we can stay monetized, but someone ended a camera head's life. There's literally no context here besides the story, but after this, the guy begins to be stalked by these camera heads. These camera head characters are pretty terrifying to look at. If you compare this to a normal human, obviously having several cameras for a head would allow you to observe things even better, which would make for the perfect villain to spy on anyone. These characters are cursed, and they're probably one of the creepiest things on this iceberg, and I highly suggest you guys look into this a little bit more if you're interested. Well, congrats. You made it through the iceberg of icebergs. Probably one of my most confusing videos yet, so hopefully it came out alright. If you guys did enjoy the video, of course, likes are appreciated, and if you guys do want to watch more videos like this, consider subscribing, because we have a ton of iceberg videos out already, and a lot more to come. Anyways, that is it for the cursed iceberg of iceberg charts.